You have probably felt this before, haven't you? You spend an entire evening studying. You lock yourself in your room, you turn off your phone, and you grind for 3, maybe 4 hours straight. You close the textbook feeling accomplished, like you have finally conquered the material. But then, the next morning arrives. You wake up, you try to recall what you learned, and it feels like your brain simply hit the delete button. The formulas are gone. The vocabulary is foggy. The concepts that seemed so clear last night have evaporated into thin air. It makes you want to scream. You start to question your own intelligence. You look at others who seem to breeze through exams or learn new languages effortlessly, and you think, what is wrong with me? Why is my memory so terrible? Am I just not smart enough? You force yourself to drink more coffee, to stay up later, to stare at the pages harder, hoping that if you just suffer a little more, the information will finally stick, but it never does. It just leaves you exhausted, burned out, and feeling like you are fighting a losing battle against your own mind. And here is the thing that nobody tells you. It is not your fault. You are not lazy. You definitely do not lack intelligence. The problem isn't your brain's hardware. The problem is the software you are trying to run on it. You see, we have been sold a lie. In the West, we are taught that learning is a marathon. We are told that the harder we grind, the more we learn. We glorify the all-nighter and the caffeine-fueled study sessions. But in Japan, students are expected to memorize over 2,000 complex kanji characters before they even leave high school. These aren't just letters. They are intricate puzzles with multiple meanings and strokes. If they tried to learn the way you do by brute force and sleepless nights, they would fail. They don't have super brains. They simply understand a secret that we often ignore. They know that the brain doesn't learn through intensity. It learns through rhythm. You have been trying to sprint a marathon, and your brain is simply protecting itself by shutting down. Let me explain exactly what is happening inside your head right now, using an analogy that will change how you see studying forever. Imagine for a moment that your brain is a high-end computer. When you wake up in the morning, your system needs to boot up. It needs a specific voltage to get the circuits running. In biological terms, this voltage is cortisol. But instead of letting the system boot up naturally with light and movement, most of us jolted awake with a blast of dopamine from our phones or a shock of caffeine. It's like trying to run heavy video editing software the second you press the power button. The system lags, it glitches. Then comes the processing phase. When you sit down and force yourself to focus for 4 hours without a break, you are doing something dangerous. You are overheating your CPU. Your brain has a component called the hippocampus. Think of this as your RAM, your random access memory. It's fast, but it's small. And most importantly, it's volatile. It can only hold so much data before it gets full. When you try to cram for hours, you are pouring water into a cup that is already overflowing. The data isn't being stored, it's spilling over the sides and disappearing. But the real magic and the real tragedy happens at night. This is where the Japanese understanding of biology separates the geniuses from the rest of us. You see, the hippocampus is just a temporary holding dock. For a memory to stick for life, it needs to move from the hippocampus to the cortex. The cortex is your hard drive. It's massive, stable, and permanent. But here is the catch. The file transfer only happens when you sleep. And not just any sleep, but deep, undisturbed cycles. When you stay up late studying, you are literally cutting the power cord during the file transfer. You are doing all the work of creating the files, but you aren't letting the system save them. That is why you wake up with a blank slate. That is why you feel like you hit the delete button. You didn't save your work. The Japanese routine isn't about working harder. It's about optimizing this boot up, processing, and saving cycle so that you never lose a single byte of data again. You need to stop telling yourself the story that you are broken. For years, you have looked at your grades or your stalled progress and internalized it as a character flaw. You thought you were lazy. You thought you lacked discipline. You thought your brain was just naturally slower than everyone else's. But that is the wrong diagnosis, and because it is the wrong diagnosis, you have been applying the wrong cure. You have been trying to cure a software error by beating up the hardware. The shift happens the moment you realize that focus is not a personality trait you are born with, it is a biological state that you engineer. It is like blaming a car for not running when you haven't put fuel in the tank. You don't need more willpower. You don't need to punish yourself with longer hours. You simply need to stop fighting against your own biology and start working with it. You aren't lacking potential, you are lacking a protocol. And once you install the right protocol, the same brain that feels scattered and foggy today can become a laser-focused machine tomorrow. It is time to stop trying to be a hero who grinds through the pain and start being an architect who builds a system that makes the pain unnecessary. Let's dismantle the old way of learning and rebuild it using the Japanese philosophy of rhythm. We are going to install 3 specific protocols into your daily life. These aren't just habits. They are the operating instructions for your brain. The first protocol is what I call the morning boot sequence. Most students destroy their focus before they even get out of bed. You wake up and immediately scroll through your phone, flooding your cold brain with high dopamine information. In our computer analogy, this is like trying to open 1,000 heavy applications the second you press the power button. The system crashes before it even starts. The Japanese approach is radically different. They understand that the brain needs a signal to wake up, and that signal is light. When you wake up, your first move shouldn't be to check notifications, but to step outside or stand by a window. This isn't just poetic, it is mechanics. The sunlight hits your retina and signals your body to release a pulse of cortisol. This is your system's voltage. It clears the fog. But here is the critical twist that makes the Japanese method so effective. Once the system is powered on, do not start putting new information in. Instead, pull information out. Japanese students often begin their study sessions not by reading new chapters, but by actively recalling what they learned yesterday. Think about a path in a dense forest. Reading is like walking that path once. The grass bends, but it springs back up. But recalling, forcing your brain to find the information without looking at the book, is like walking that path back and forth until the grass dies and a dirt road forms. Every time you struggle to remember a fact, you are literally carving that neural pathway deeper. So tomorrow morning, don't read. Close your eyes and ask yourself what you learned yesterday. It will feel difficult. It will feel uncomfortable. But that discomfort is the feeling of long-term memory being built. Once the morning is secured, we move to the second protocol, which is the cooling fan rhythm. We have this toxic belief that sitting still for 4 hours means we are being productive. But the brain's attention span is a wave, not a straight line. It peaks and it crashes. If you try to push through the crash, you aren't learning. You are just staring at words while your brain overheats. The Japanese respect the concept of the negative space. They study in concentrated bursts, perhaps 40 or 50 minutes, but then they do something that looks completely unproductive to the Western eye. They stop, and when I say stop, I mean a complete system pause. They don't switch tabs to YouTube. They don't check messages. They might just sit and look out the window. They might stretch. They might close their eyes. This silence is the cooling fan spinning up. It allows the information you just processed to settle before you add more. It prevents the system overheat that leads to burnout. You have to understand that resting is not the opposite of working. Resting is the maintenance that allows the work to continue. If you skip the cooldown, the machine breaks. It is that simple. Finally, we arrive at the most critical protocol, the one that separates the amateurs from the masters. This is the save button sequence. You can have the best morning and the most focused afternoon, but if you mess up the last hour of the day, you lose everything. Remember, your brain decides what to keep and what to delete while you sleep. It prioritizes the information that was most active right before you went unconscious. If you spend the last hour of your day watching angry political videos or mindless entertainment, you are telling your brain that that is the priority data. You are essentially overwriting your study files with junk data. The Japanese routine involves a deliberate, calm review right before bed. It doesn't have to be intense, just 10 minutes. You look over your notes one last time. You hold the key concepts in your mind. You are tagging these files as important. Then, you cut the input. You turn off the screens. You lower the lights. You enter a state of calm. This allows your brain to transition from recording mode to storage mode. When you drift off to sleep after this routine, your hippocampus gets to work, moving those tagged files into your cortex. You wake up the next morning, and the information is still there, locked in, ready to be used. You didn't work harder than anyone else. You just remembered to hit save. Even with this blueprint in your hands, there are still invisible walls that trip almost everyone up within the first week. I have seen it happen 1,000 times. The first and most dangerous trap is the seduction of intensity. You watch a video like this, you feel a surge of motivation, and you decide that starting tomorrow, you are going to wake up at 5 a.m., run 3 miles, study for 6 hours, and meditate before bed. You try to install the entire operating system update in a single second. And just like a computer trying to run too many updates at once, you freeze. You last for 3 days, and then you crash harder than before because the change was too radical for your current hardware to handle. Another subtle mistake is ignoring the fuel source. You might have the perfect study intervals and the perfect lighting, but then you fuel your body with heavy carbs and sugar during lunch. You treat your body like it is separate from your brain, but they are wired to the same circuit board. A heavy meal pulls blood away from the brain to the stomach for digestion, literally dimming your cognitive lights right when you need them most. You wonder why you have brain fog at 2 p.m., blaming your willpower, when really it is just biology responding to the wrong fuel. And finally, there is the mistake of breaking the chain on the bad days. You will have days where the system feels clunky, where you feel tired, where you just don't want to do it. The mistake is thinking that if you can't do the routine perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. You skip the morning light because you woke up late. You skip the evening review because you are too tired. But the Japanese mastery isn't about perfection on the good days. It is about holding the rhythm on the bad ones. A 10-minute review is infinitely better than 0. A messy boot up is better than staying powered down. Do not let the pursuit of the perfect routine kill the good one. I know that hearing all of this might feel a little overwhelming. It is easy to look at where you are now, maybe feeling behind, maybe feeling like your memory is a sieve, and feel a heavy weight in your chest. You might be looking at the gap between who you are and who you want to be, and that gap looks like a canyon. But I want you to take a deep breath and realize something important. You are not broken. There is no missing piece in your brain that the smart people have and you don't. You have simply been running a marathon in shoes that don't fit, and you are wondering why your feet hurt. It is okay if you have failed in the past. It is okay if you have spent years studying the wrong way. That time wasn't wasted. It was data collection. You were learning what doesn't work so you could finally appreciate what does. Change doesn't happen in a lightning strike of motivation. It happens in the quiet, invisible moments. It happens when you choose to stand in the sun for 2 minutes instead of checking Instagram. It happens when you choose to close your eyes and recall one fact instead of rereading a page. These moments feel small, almost insignificant, but they are the seeds. You might not see the tree growing tomorrow, or even next week, but under the soil, the roots are spreading. Be patient with yourself. Treat your mind with the same kindness you would offer a friend. You are building a complex machine, and good engineering takes time. So, who are you going to be when you wake up tomorrow? Are you going to be the struggling student who views learning as a punishment, a heavy burden that you have to drag up a hill every single day? Or are you going to step into a new identity? The identity of an architect. An architect doesn't get angry when a building falls down. They look at the blueprints and adjust the support beams. An architect understands that structure creates freedom. You are no longer just a person trying to pass a test. You are a high-performance system administrator. You are the guardian of your own potential. You respect your boot up. You protect your cooling fans. And you ensure you hit save before you shut down. When you shift your identity from trying to study to optimizing my system, the resistance fades away. The grades, the fluency, the certifications, those are just the side effects of living in rhythm. If you are ready to stop fighting your brain and start mastering it, if you want to build a life of efficiency rather than exhaustion, then this is just the beginning. We decode the hidden scripts of high achievers every single week. If that sounds like the upgrade you have been waiting for, make sure you are subscribed. Let's build that new operating system together. I'll see you in the next update.